and the illusion of progress, breaking barriers while facing invisible ceilings. Today, I want to take you on a journey through what might be one of the most misunderstood aspects of social progress in America, a journey that challenges our comfortable narratives, disrupts our assumptions, and invites us to see beyond the headlines that so often pacify us into complacency. I'm deeply honored to share insights from my transformative conversation with Dr. Kendra Kay, whose groundbreaking research has fundamentally reshaped how we understand representation and power in this country. Dr. Kay isn't just a brilliant researcher, she's a visionary who has dedicated her life to illuminating the complex interplay between visible progress and invisible barriers. Her work has influenced policy at the highest levels of government and corporate America, creating pathways where none existed before. What Dr. K revealed in our conversation was nothing short of revolutionary, a truth that sits uncomfortably in our collective consciousness. Celebration and critique must coexist if we are to create genuine, lasting change. Let me paint a picture for you. We live in an era of remarkable firsts. Black women are breaking historic records in political representation, holding more state legislative seats than ever before. For the first time in American history, two Black women, Angela Also Brooks and Lisa Blunt Rochester, are serving simultaneously in the United States Senate. These achievements deserve our celebration, our recognition, our honor. Yet, these milestones exist alongside stubborn, persistent realities. No Black woman has ever served as a U.S. governor, not one. No Black woman has ever held a cabinet level federal executive office. Among Fortune 500 companies, only two Black women currently serve as CEOs, less than half of 1% of these influential positions. This dual reality, historic gains alongside persistent exclusion, shatters the comfortable narrative that progress moves in a steady, uninterrupted line forward. The truth is more complicated, more nuanced, and demands our honest attention. As Dr. K powerfully articulated, we must be willing to hold both celebration and critique in the same hand, honoring breakthroughs while acknowledging the systems that continue to limit full participation. This perspective challenges us to move beyond simplistic narratives of either uncritical celebration or cynical dismissal. It invites us into a more mature, nuanced understanding of change, one that honors achievement while remaining clear eyed about the work ahead. From my profound conversation with Dr. K, three essential insights emerged that I believe can transform how we approach representation and leadership in America. First, historic gains do not mean equity has been achieved. While we've witnessed record breaking achievements for Black women in politics and leadership, significant gaps persist at higher levels of power. The celebration of firsts can sometimes create an illusion that barriers have fallen, when in reality, they've simply shifted or become less visible, but no less real. Second, representation functions as both an outcome and a catalyst. The increased visibility of Black women leaders inspires future generations, showing what's possible. But these breakthroughs didn't happen spontaneously. They reflect decades of advocacy, coalition building, and resilience against systemic barriers. Representation is both the fruit of past labor and the seed for future change. Third, building sustainable pipelines is essential for lasting transformation. True progress depends on intentional investment in mentorship, resources, and networks that support Black women's advancement. We must move beyond celebrating individual successes to dismantling structural obstacles for all. Let me bring these insights to life through the remarkable stories Dr. Kay shared with me. In 2025, Angela Also Brooks of Maryland and Lisa Blunt Rochester of Delaware made history as the first two Black women to serve simultaneously in the U.S. Senate, a milestone never before reached in American politics. Their elections doubled Black women's representation in the upper chamber overnight. But their journeys weren't without significant challenges. Both face entrenched stereotypes about electability at statewide levels. Both encountered fundraising disparities and received limited party support compared with other candidates. What made their victories possible? It wasn't luck, it wasn't simply changing times, it was strategic, intentional action. Grassroots organizing, leveraging community networks built over years. Robust digital campaigns tailored to mobilize diverse voter bases. Each built her reputation as an effective local leader before running statewide. Also, Brooks, as Prince George's County Executive, Blunt Rochester as Delaware's Lone House member. They won competitive primaries against well funded opponents and set new precedents for future candidates from underrepresented backgrounds. Their victories galvanized national efforts focused on supporting more Black women into high office, while simultaneously highlighting where persistent gaps remain, particularly in executive positions like governorships. This story perfectly illustrates both recent breakthroughs and ongoing limitations facing Black women seeking top elected offices. It reminds us that progress is possible, but rarely comes without strategic organizing and intentional support systems. Another fascinating phenomenon Dr. Kay shared was what researchers have called the Kamala effect. Following Kamala Harris's election as vice president, the highest office ever held by a woman of color, the number of successful down ballot campaigns by Black women surged nationwide between 2020 and 2025. These candidates often encountered skepticism regarding their viability outside majority minority districts. Many faced limited access to donor networks and the challenge of balancing authenticity with navigating traditional political expectations. Their solution: forming alliances with national organizations like Higher Heights Leadership Fund, dedicated specifically to recruiting, training, and supporting Black female candidates across all levels of government. The outcomes have been remarkable. Record numbers elected as mayors in major cities such as Philadelphia, Fort Wayne, and Oakland. Legislative seat holdings rose by over 67% since 2014. Dozens broke local glass ceilings, including first ever appointments and elections for their cities and states. These wins weren't isolated phenomena. They were built on decades long groundwork laid by activists working behind the scenes after trailblazers like Shirley Chisholm paved initial pathways. The impact has been profound, creating visible role models, inspiring young professionals, and providing critical momentum toward broader systemic change. This example shows how individual breakthroughs can spark collective action, but also underscores ongoing work needed beyond symbolic victories. As Dr. Kay emphasized, representation matters, but representation alone isn't enough. Moving beyond politics into corporate America, similar patterns emerge. The Institute for Women's Policy Research launched its Advancing Black Women in Leadership initiative after research showed only two Black women CEOs currently lead Fortune 500 companies out of hundreds, a stark indicator despite rising educational attainment rates among African American professionals since the early 2000s. Systemic bias within corporate pipelines has led many talented mid career professionals to be overlooked or pushed out before reaching C suite roles. The initiative provides data driven advocacy plus mentorship programs targeting aspiring executives from entry level upward, with policy recommendations aimed at institutional reforms around hiring and promotion practices. The outcomes include a growing network connecting thousands nationally while raising awareness about invisible barriers still faced inside boardrooms, even when diversity statements abound externally. IWPR spent years documenting career trajectories and statistical disparities prior to launching this targeted project based on clear evidence that gaps persisted despite broader DEI rhetoric post 2020 racial reckoning movements within corporate America. This work has brought renewed urgency and focus onto intersectional leadership issues previously sidelined within mainstream gender equity conversations. These stories reveal a common thread. Progress happens through intentional effort, not passive evolution. Systems don't transform themselves. People transform systems through strategic action, coalition building, and persistent advocacy. So, what does this mean for you sitting here today? How might these insights transform your understanding of progress and your role in creating more equitable systems? First, celebrate progress authentically. Acknowledge breakthroughs, your own and others, without using them to mask persistent barriers. Hold space for both achievement and honest assessment. Second, invest in pipelines, not just personalities. Support systems and structures that develop leadership at all levels, creating pathways for those who will come after you. Mentor intentionally, share resources generously, build networks purposefully. Third, practice sustainable advocacy. Approach change making as a marathon, not a sprint. Rest is not a reward for the work, it's essential fuel for the journey. Fourth, recognize that representation matters, but representation alone isn't enough. Visibility must be coupled with voice, influence, and decision making power to create lasting change. I stand before you today with a challenge to disrupt the comfortable narratives we tell ourselves about progress, a challenge to look beyond the headlines, beyond the firsts, beyond the symbolic victories to ask harder questions about power, access, and genuine transformation. How will you use your influence, not just your presence, to actively open doors for others who still face invisible ceilings? What concrete steps will you take tomorrow to mentor someone whose potential deserves amplification? How might you leverage your position, whatever it may be, to create more equitable access to opportunity? The path forward isn't about individual heroics, it's about collective action, strategic intervention, and sustainable change making. It's about honoring both progress and persistent challenges. It's about celebrating breakthroughs while continuing to break ground. We stand at a pivotal moment in history, a moment that calls us not just to witness change, but to create it. Not just to applaud progress, but to accelerate it. Not just to recognize barriers, but to dismantle them. The question isn't whether we'll see more firsts in the coming years. We will. The question is whether these firsts will remain exceptions or become the new normal, whether they'll be isolated achievements or the foundation for systemic transformation. That answer depends on what each of us does tomorrow and the day after and the day after that. It depends on our willingness to hold both celebration and critique in the same hand, to honor how far we've come while remaining clear eyed about how far we have yet to go. The illusion of progress is believing that milestones equal movement. The reality of progress is recognizing that every breakthrough is both an achievement to celebrate and a foundation to build upon. I invite you to join me in rejecting comfortable narratives in favor of complex truths, in moving beyond symbolic representation toward genuine transformation, in creating a world where ceilings, visible and invisible, no longer limit the heights to which any of us can soar. Thank you